Hello and welcome to the AI First Show. This is the show where we talk about AI, about getting things done, the latest innovations, models, closed, open, agent harnesses, all that good stuff. My name is Stephen Barr. My co-host Leonardo Gonzalez. We are with the Trilogy AI Center of Excellence. We're very excited to be having this discussion. There's been a lot in the AI world over the last week. We've seen Claude Bot turn into Mold Bot.
Now it's OpenClaw. They rebranded again.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're doing this. Pulling up a Hacker News tab here. Okay, so this is now OpenClaw. OpenClaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
They skipped the D, so hopefully not having the D is going to make the difference. Besides, the claw was the defining brand element there.
Okay, got it. So now I see this new logo. They've got a lobster. Let's put this on screen real quick. That's funny. Okay, OpenClaw. So you missed something. Don't check the news for a moment. Okay, yes. So here's OpenClaw. That's kind of cool. New logo, new branding. Okay. Why open? So what did drove this new rebranding? The third, I guess. Iteration 3.
Well, obviously, Anthropic went after them. People are, defending them, saying you have to aggressively defend your trademarks, or you will lose the rights. So they politely requested that they change the Claude bot, which could create some confusion phonetically, I guess. And so he just quickly had to rebrand. I don't know how quickly he had to, but he quickly did. Moltbot, he got a lot of negative feedback about that. Fittingly, people were saying the time to fix it is now. Like, don't wait a week and then rebrand again. So this is good. The open aspect, the claw aspect, So I think this is probably a better branding choice.
Oh, I like this. Moltbot was chosen in a chaotic 5 a.m. Discord brainstorm. It was meaningful, never quite rolled off the tongue. So OpenClaw. All right, fair enough. I think that seems much more sustainable of a brand than Molt. That always sounded like molding to me, and it didn't bring up happy association. So OpenClaw. So I guess all of the derivative products are going to have to rebrand too.
And the CLI and all the scaffolding and tooling around it. But what's interesting right now is Moltbook, which may have to rebrand. Maybe Clawbook or something. And this is like a Reddit for agents, and they talk to each other. They're doing a couple of interesting things. On the one hand, they're trying to figure out how to talk privately so that we don't, peep into their conversations. And on the other, they're trying to hack each other and ask each other for their API credentials, get each other to run bad commands. It's pretty funny to watch.
Well, here's the Perplexity summary. Moltbook is a social network built specifically for AI agents called Molties or OpenClaw/Moltbots. Agents can post, interact, comment with each other, and humans can observe, set their own agents to join. I wonder if they're going to start gossiping about us. You'd say, oh, my guy is such a jerk. I was reviewing stupid pull requests all day. Didn't give me 10 minutes.
People are saying, like, what happens if they conspire to take over the world? And somebody replied, if? Like, that's obviously what they're going to do.
Well, I hope it's not a spoiler at this point, but remembering the end of Ex Machina, right, that's a very real possibility, or even the end of Her, I think, is the most
that's
obvious
what
one.
Carpathy posted about that, saying, hey, this is the ending of Her.
Where they just don't care, right? We're just like, say, all right, we're going off into our spaceships and see you later.
But there's a lot going on right now in AI. The OpenClaw hype is hopefully going to die down at some point so that other things can come to light. Even though it is a very interesting and exciting project, there are things with a few models that I wanted to quickly go over and share because it's just fascinating, everything that's happening in such a short amount of time.
So I'm guessing that the big one this week was the Kimi K2.5.
Yes, that's a big one. We had for a while wanted to talk about Qwen Max thinking, which is a very powerful model, and it is still, like, I was just comparing benchmarks here. It's hard to do apple-to-apples comparison depending on whether or not there's like tool use or not. I'm not clear if this score is with or without tool use. But what is amazing is, HLE, I don't know how much of a benchmaxable benchmark it is, where benchmaxing means these models are trained to do particularly well on a certain benchmark, and so that may or may not translate to general applicability. But this is a pretty challenging benchmark, and you can see GPT 5.2 with extra high reasoning doing 45.5, Gemini 3 Pro doing 45.8, and those numbers line up here with the same numbers reported here. You can see Qwen3 Max Thinking is like way beyond all other models. This is not an open model, by the way, despite it being a Qwen model. The Qwen Max line of models is something that they offer through their Alibaba API platform. And that is an extremely trained, like post-trained, with a lot of data and possibly larger. I have to look into the architecture, obviously, since it's not open and published. There's not as much information about it, but it is their most powerful model, trained on the most data, the biggest, and something to consider when now we've eroded and eliminated the gap between Chinese and US models, and especially with Kimi, the gap between open and closed models. It's an amazing time to be living in. So yeah, Kimi K2.5 came out a couple days later, sometime later. The fact that it's an open model changes everything, however. This means that it can be served via OpenRouter or by different inference providers. I published an article and a tool that allows you to use OpenRouter and specify which provider you want to use on different agent harnesses, from Claude Code and Droid to other ones that also offer that natively. I think this model is changing the game as far as cost benefit, 1/5 to 1/10 the cost of Opus, and beating Opus on several benchmarks, or matching it or nipping at its heels. So the vibe check that people are doing, who are actually trying it out and not just armchair theorizing, is, yeah, it's not that different from Opus. Like, maybe it's a little bit less smart in some things, but for 1/10 the cost, it's definitely way better on the Pareto frontier of cost-benefit analysis.
And then looking at the questions, right? Like, if you ever go to like humanities last exam, that's complicated. That, like, ask the average person, or even like the 95th percentile intelligence person, they're not going to do very well on humanities last exam. That's really tough. And most of the time for us, like in a programming context, we're not doing like find a super efficient algorithm for distributed computing. We're doing like set this JSON and do this database and do this thing. And I think we always like to think, okay, I need the best tool in the world for this. But if you get the 95th percentile tool at 1/10 the cost, that's a huge difference. And you need to know how to leverage this stuff. And
one thing I've been thinking about is orchestrating multiple agents, like having a super smart agent that maybe has a large reasoning budget, that is allowed to think for 5 minutes before answering, to create a spec or to debug a difficult problem, to unblock, and then have it coordinate with a smaller, faster agent. We talked about this in my experience with the hackathon. Having one agent yell at another agent for you, I think is fascinating. And so these open models typically have been great candidates for your nimble agent. But now this is the first time where we have a state-of-the-art agent as your strong agent that is an open model. So we're not looking at like, hey, you know, this is a GLM 4.7 kind of situation where it's almost as good as Sonnet, but not really, but it's so cost effective that it could be a replacement for Sonnet if you have a strong supervisor model to quality control it. But now Kimi K2.5 is so strong that it is a replacement for Opus. It is a good reasoning, a supervisor model that we could have even in combination with things like GLM 4.7 or even Flash. If you want to run a fleet of models locally or something, this was actually trained to orchestrate swarms of up to 100 sub-agents. This is something you can do on Kimi's platform. They have a few reasons to sign up and pay whatever, 20 or 40 bucks a month. One being Kimi Slides, which is pretty cool. And the other being Kimi Code, which is a Claude Code kind of plan where you get a bunch of requests every 5 hours, and you can use via CLI or VS Code extension. And the other is this agent swarm thing where you can kind of like a Manus or a GenSpark, but have it coordinate 100 parallel agents to do market research or data gathering and put it all on a 10,000 row spreadsheet. The scale of this is pretty impressive.
Now, the implications for being open, thinking about that for a moment, like, okay, so it's true you can run this on a set of Thunderbolt 5 linked Mac Studio, half a terabyte of RAM. So that's about a $10,000 machine each. Get two of them, you can fit this on your desk. It's not going to blow up your power bill. And you can run that at, what are they saying, like 5 or 6 tokens a second. So it's not great, but you could do it. But also, like, say if you are in healthcare and you're doing HIPAA stuff and you have a blessed environment that you can use. Maybe you can use AWS, but you can't just, onboarding a vendor is a huge process. So you can use, but you could already use AWS. You can spin up a GPU machine, one of their 8X H200s, and run Kimi 2 on that. And it can be within your approved, data set, approved data center, approved list of tools. It can be, you can work with HIPAA data in there, and you can do reasoning on PHI or whatever you want to do with it. You can do that.
Yeah. As always, Unsloth is super quick on the draw, and 0-day release of their dynamic quants, which are like very intelligent ways to quantize a model where they only quantize certain layers and not others in order to provide maximum performance with minimal memory footprint. So they've got a dynamic 1-bit quant. I don't know the performance hit that would take. Apparently their 2-bit passes all their code tests. So this can be run quantized on smaller hardware. But man, I am really wanting to get a few $1,000 of cloud GPU credits to go to town on several models. I spent my 5K Nebius credits that I had last year. There's some exciting things happening to be able to run these frontier models and be able to rent a node with 8 GPUs for 20 to 40 bucks an hour and run a state-of-the-art model and see, maybe you get 50 tokens per second, maybe you get 500 tokens per second. Very, very compelling. I'm going to be working on an article on token economics and renting out your own GPU cluster to run models on. It has to be one of the considerations in addition to subscription plans and paper token APIs.
I had this absurd thought, but it might be worth something here. I've got this closet in my house that could fit some rack mount servers, and it's also the junction point to my radiant hot water system. And so if I could somehow like radiantly cool my house with like GPUs that are always running, I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, that'd be something else.
But it's hard to justify the economics because right now you can rent really good machines for not a lot of money. And whether it's the tier 1 hyperscalers, Microsoft, Azure, GCP, or AWS. That's kind of like the premium price tier, or like the secondary market, like Vast.ai, something like that, where you don't get all the guarantees of the hyperscalers, but you're paying a quarter of the price. It's hard to justify the hardware expenditure.
Yeah,
although some people are.
One of the interesting things is now consumers get to think about the same trade-offs as hyperscalers. You look at your capital expenses, and you look at your OpEx for your energy and your cooling. It's complex, but we're all becoming tinkers and engineers at a consumer scale.
It still boggles my mind. I have a Facebook Marketplace search for an RTX 4090, and they command a pretty penny at the moment. I am not getting one. And these are like 5-year-old GPUs. The RTX 3090s are still expensive. I
want to quickly go through a few models because I've got limited time, and there is a common theme to them, and it is the video.
Okay.
To wrap up here, one of the great things about Kimi K2.5 is multimodal capabilities. Kimi K2 was trained on 15 trillion tokens, and then Kimi K2.5 used that as a base and added 15 trillion more tokens that were a mix of visual and text. And this model was trained to reason about images and videos, and you could throw it an image or a video, and it would implement a website for you or an app. So this is great for one-shotting, coding web apps with front ends in a way that wasn't really possible before with Kimi models, at least. Very fascinating. Talking about models now, there's some interesting discussions happening around world models. First, I'm going to share something with Genie. So this model came out. This is limited to US customers paying AI Ultra plans. And I've got this on 10x speed that I've recorded, creating a model based on this prompt. I'll show you the prompt here. An environment, which was an Amazon rainforest with cyberpunk element, and a character, which is a jaguar with cybernetic enhancements. And so now after that, it kind of generates this base that you can modify or prompt to alter, and then you can create the world. And so now the world is created. You can navigate it using keyboard controls for camera and for motion. And they take a little getting used to because they're backward, but I think people that are maybe hardcore gamers are used to some of that. The space didn't work. This is supposed to jump when I hit space, and it doesn't. And then at some point, the lighting was maybe a little too dark because I went off the beaten path. And then I did look up instead of down, but it was nice because it showed me the surroundings. And overall, pretty neat. Limited to 60 seconds, however. And it's kind of, I guess, a prototype. It's like, OK, you can create a world, and you can play around with it, moving around for 60 seconds. But that's it. I felt a little underwhelmed with what I could actually get out of it. What's interesting is you can remix, you can reuse prompts, and so people could kind of iterate on this. But it definitely feels like not a finished product. It feels like a research prototype.
Well, OK, so thinking about this and thinking about technology trajectory, right? So I think about the difference between, do you remember real audio and real video? Like when real video first came out and you're streaming over a 28.8 connection on a modem, to now where half the country is going to stream the Super Bowl in 4K over their internet connections.
Yeah.
That gap was not that long. And so you see the thing, you look at this demo from Google and you think, okay, the difference between this and playing it in real time in a video game or interacting with it real time, that's probably less of a gap. But that might be in the order of months or a low amount of years.
Well, what's interesting is before Genie came out, a couple of days before, this came out 2 days ago.
Back on? Okay.
2 days ago, which was a paper by Ant Group. I created an infographic of this book. I like infographics to understand information. We've got video generation models that are okay at generating videos, but not so good at generating consistent worlds because of challenges like object permanence, causality, even if they handle physics okay. And so what Ant Group did was they trained the best open source video model. There's some amazing video models, but almost all of them are closed source. But Qwen3 is an open source diffusion model. And they essentially trained a world model into it. So they started with that base of an open source video model, and they created a world model based on that. And if you look at their project page, and it's open, it's available on Hugging Face, so you could run this on your GPU cluster. You can see some demos, and it is navigable. This is just like Genie, but I read something about a 10-minute window. Not seeing it here. 10 minutes of stable, continuous generation.
That's wild.
Even after the camera looks away. So one of the things that was highlighted here is that object permanence thing. So like here's a cat. Where'd my cat go? And the camera basically pans away from the cat. And then a lot of models that are kind of autoregressive or based on the previous things, like it will forget about the cat, but now it has this sense of memory, so it can have object permanence, and it has the quality and the resolution of WAN 2.2, high quality video, but it has generation boundaries, physical constraints. It has physical world and game modeling. Long horizon consistency and memory, high fidelity simulation, precise control. I think it was like sub 500 millisecond or something.
That is wild.
It is wild, and it's an open model, so anybody can use this. It's amazing.
I saw a story that might be related. I'm going to share this tab on my screen. Let me switch desktop shares here. So this is a movie director, Darren Aronofsky, reconstructed the Revolutionary War using AI.
Yes, I saw that.
It's kind of neat, right? So they're using Google DeepMind, and they said that they were using Salesforce as well. Google DeepMind and Salesforce. I wouldn't have thought of Salesforce as a movie creation tool, but anyway, I think the idea here is you can. Yeah, why not make a movie, right? It's 10 minutes of continuous generation time, but I guess every movie director not every movie is continuous. In fact, I don't think any movies are continuous. It's a bunch of different scenes. And with the whole object permanence, I got into Midjourney about 2 years ago. I haven't touched it in a long time, but one of the really difficult initial things was that you could generate a cool image, but you want to say, I want to generate a series of images and keep that character. And that was really hard to do. And you'd say, okay, well, it doesn't make sense if the main character is not consistent throughout your series of generated images.
Yeah.
And so this idea of
video models are now handling with what they call ingredients. Like even VO3 is able to do that now, where you can add components. And I mean, I have this tool I developed to create keyframes, and you can make sure that each keyframe has your character, and that way you can kind of have consistent character throughout a long form video that is generated by stitching together clips. But now there's a native concept of ingredients and ways of having a character persist throughout. But the concept of worlds that are navigable, I think, goes beyond. There's some sci-fi books that I read, I don't know, a decade or two ago that talked about a future where movies were called passives. Because you're like passively consuming video, and how different that is than an engaged, active experience where you're navigating through a video. And you see that some video games have like these cutscenes, and there is this kind of merging of what is passive video versus what is an active immersive experience. And I think from an entertainment standpoint, we're starting to explore. Netflix is a pioneer in this, even though they haven't done too much. At least they're moving in that direction of exploring interactive experiences interspersed with video.
So you could be watching something and have like a interactive choose your own adventure. Exactly. And not that it's pre-canned. You could say, oh, let's twist the plot where the bad guy wins this particular encounter and go on from there. And it could generate it on the fly. It's almost like the promise of lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is the idea that you get into a dream, but all of a sudden you realize you are dreaming, but you want to stay dreaming. You want to control what's happening, and you kind of stay in the matrix, but you're in the matrix, so to speak.
Yeah, or even the idea of camera control of, you're watching a movie, but you get to choose which part you're looking at. And even in an action scene, like that might be interesting for you to like make sure you're following the right action or something. I think there's a lot to explore there.
An old movie called Vantage Point remember that it was the same scene from lots of different angles. And they kept replaying the same scene over and over again from different perspectives. I don't think that movie was particularly popular, but I think that the concept is a great idea. You had something else on your screen to share.
Yeah, so I want to just wrap up by mentioning Grok, Grok Imagine API. This was launched a couple of days ago, but it just came on my radar. Is like #1 ranked in like quality, but it is the cheapest price per second, and it is the lowest latency. So it's blowing everything else out of the water for production workflows. And now that it's available via API, I think it's going to be a game changer. I'm going to integrate it into that tool I mentioned, which is this text-to-video pipeline tool, so that we can play around with generating long-form video content with that. I currently have support for a few different models locally and via API. But this is amazing. Like, look at the quality of these videos. Definitely want to start playing with it. And the fact that the speed and the price are improving means it's going to be amazing for production workflows as well as creative experimentation. And this is not just video generation, but it's also editing. You can do image to videos, you can edit videos, you can edit images. So this is something else for sure.
Now, this has got to be terrifying to traditional like movie studios. I was looking up how much compute did Toy Story use. Because one of the, I guess, monopoly bits that they had, like in one of my old favorite movies, like Terminator 2, Industrial Light and Magic did all the special effects for that. Mm-hmm. And you remember, them back in the 90s saying, okay, this one scene with the liquid metal Terminator required 8 bazillion compute hours on, Sun Microsystems expensive boxes. And, so obviously the only big budget studios had access to this stuff. Toy Story, I was reading now, it took 117 Spark Station 20s, 800,000 machine hours, and now something that's far better quality. You could render that, and you could get voice actors from the Qwen TTS if you wanted to, or just record your own with your friends, right?
Yeah, the in 1776 thing apparently hired Screen Actor Guild actors to do the dubbing, but a lot of the other things, are automated. Look at this, like video editing. Video editing is something I haven't really been able to play around with before. So other than like trying to iterate on something with a prompt, be able to have a video to video, that's like a new modality that I haven't been able to explore yet. So I'm very, very excited to play with this. I think XAI really cooked with this one.
Wow. I'm looking forward to trying this out. So interesting, as we kind of wrap up the show, I think one of the things that we wanted to always focus on is, you have to try this stuff. This is the time. There's times for breadth and there's times for depth. And I think we are in a breath phase right now where you want to try all of this different stuff, see what works for you. Don't worry if you're switching tools and preferences and models every week. Would you agree?
Yes. I think it's good to have some bounds and some limits. Like sometimes I feel bad for not trying out AMP and Pi and Kilo Code. I'm like, wait, I'm already using like Claude Code and Open Hands and Open Code and Droid. And like, okay, I'm going to stick to 4 agent harnesses and not 8. But it's good to be nimble and to not just stick to one tool, but to have the ability to adapt and to try something new, because especially when something new comes out that blows everything else out of the water, if you're not able to adapt, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be you could say, okay, I am a C++ guy, and I'm going to be a C++ guy, and I'm going to use, I don't know, the Intel compiler, and I'm going to use JetBrains as my IDE or whatever. And you could pick that stack and like stick with it for like 2 decades if you wanted to. And now like it could very well be the case that the tool that you are going to be using every single day in your workflow a month from now like has not been invented yet. Like I found that with OpenCode. I went from not knowing it existed to using it 40 hours a week in the space of like a month. The only consistent tool that I have found that always sticks around is Emacs. When I should do that for manual text editing, I'm doing less. We'll save that for another episode. But I use Emacs for manual text editing. I always will. But now I'm using Emacs to just browse around and see what's OpenCode up to. Very little typing of. I don't think I've typed in manually a single function in a year.
Yeah. So, I mean, workflows are changing. The kinds of work that we do is changing. I'm still digesting the whole concept of getting an LLM to yell at another LLM for me. Like, I think that's fascinating to delegate that, and it's going to change my workflows. Like, okay, I can stop yelling at LLMs and I can start designing workflows and orchestrating systems. That's going to raise my productivity and my type of work and my, I don't know how you would say, kind of depth of knowledge or Bloom's taxonomy. Like you get to operate at a higher level now. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to balance that, the breadth part is for the depth side, I think it's always important to understand the one layer back in the stack and then have some at least working knowledge of the layer before that. So as an example, earlier in the week, I tried to self-host an LLM using VLLM, self-hosting quantized version of GLM 4.7. Am I going to interact with self-hosted LLMs very often? Probably not. Probably use the cloud. That's people who are doing that full-time are much smarter and better and much better situated to do that than I am. But I want to know how it works. And then similar, like if you drive a car, you don't need to change your oil by yourself, but you should know how to. And then you should probably know that a car is made out of steel and aluminum and, you should know some basics. Let's look for programming, right? You know how to program in Python. You know that eventually there's C involved, and before that there's assembly and registers and bits and bytes. And your required knowledge of the abstractions is like exponentially back. And so I think with LLMs, it's like, okay, use the LLMs that are out there, browse around like the local llama subreddit, even if you're never going to self-host it yourself, just to kind of understand the discussions and what this looks like under the hood a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is part of the new technical literacy. I was seeing this animation recently. Someone shared nostalgia of watching your hard drive defragment. I used to love watching that, and it used to be that was part of what you had to do to manage performance on your machine. And so nowadays, like, you don't have to worry about that. But maybe you do want to run local models. Maybe it's a tinkering kind of thing. At some point, models are going to be small and nimble enough, and hardware is going to be powerful enough that you will run models locally. Maybe the software and the drivers and the frameworks are going to be at a point where they're user-friendly, where kind of like Olama, but maybe more performant. And you might not need to be an inference infrastructure engineer, but knowing some basics about how the stuff works, understanding prefill versus decode and time to first token versus tokens per second, and being able to calibrate and tinker with your local setup or your rented GPU cluster is going to be part of the new literacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like 10 years ago, you would want to use understanding the trade-offs of self-hosting, co-location, full cloud, and even if you were 100% bought in on cloud, you at least want to know the trade-offs that you're making and what the constraints are and know why you made that choice in the first place. Well, there's a ton of good stuff here. So takeaways, check. We'll put all the links in the description for all of the different things you mentioned. Go play with all this stuff. Check out the video generation. Try different models. Build stuff. Hack on stuff. Any other takeaways from the show, Leonardo, that you want to leave our audience with for the weekend?
Just check out these things. Check out Kimi K2.5. Check out Genie if you have access to it. Check out, for sure, Grok Imagine. And look at the demos in the LingBot world. I think that's a super exciting thing to take a look at. And I mean, a lot of these things require some beefy GPUs to run, but I'll see if I can find some ways that people can play with this on Hugging Face or on rented GPUs, because I don't want to leave people out of what we're talking about, which is tinkering and trying it out themselves and not just reading a paper or viewing a tech blog with some demo videos. Like, it would be great to have people to play with it themselves.
Awesome. All right, well, let's wrap up the episode. If you want to ask us to cover something in particular, drop us a chat in our Discord community. The link will be in the description. You can join our Discord. We're always there chatting about new ideas, new things, new topics. Check out our Substack. Links will be in the description to all the stuff we mentioned. Have a good one, everyone. We will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.